All right, back to it now. My next guest, Gruber Norquist, good friend of the program for many, many years, president of Americans for Tax Reform. He joins me now. Grover, nice to see you here today. And I bring you on because, look, a lot to sort out from the big speech on Tuesday. Democrats didn't like anything except the endless war in Ukraine. That's the only thing they seem to care about. That's the only thing that I can see that they cheered for. But let's sort some things out here. North of the border, Justin Trudeau saying, well, we'll fight you with a tariff war. I think that's a bad idea, Justin. Doug Ford, the premier of Ontario, the province of Canada that is the largest, says that he's going to shut down Starlink and a bunch of other things, even though he has no replacement for it. I guess putting his people in the dark is his answer to these tariffs. First of all, what do you think of the tariffs? Where do you think of what you heard on Tuesday?
Well, on Canada specifically, there's an election in Canada. And a month ago, the Conservatives were guaranteed to win. And then when Trump had the argument with Canada that was ongoing, the Canadian left decided, well, we're going to lose to the Conservatives in Canada, but we can have a fight with Trump and the United States and maybe win. So one of the things I wish the president would focus on is this is not the time to stir up Canadian nationalism. Not because the United States isn't bigger and can't win some sort of fight, but the election is shifting over to the left, and it would be in the president's interest to have a conservative government in Canada rather than the crazy left-wing government they have. So sometimes there's not one issue on the table, tariffs or this, that, or the other thing. There's several, and we're in the process of losing that election.
Yeah, and I don't know. I don't know if there's going to be an election. In fact, Cynthia, whatever her name is, the number two in Trudeau's party there, suggesting the idea that they don't have elections because there's this Trump tariff crisis, this tariff war, trade war. So it's always interesting to me, Grover, that those on the left say it's Trump and people like Trump that will never give up power, and yet here we are. Zelensky canceled elections in Ukraine. They're talking about canceling elections in Canada because of this trade war. Interesting, isn't it?
It is. Canada has that sort of thing like the British do, where they have to have it by a certain date, but they can also have it earlier. So they may have the capacity to move it around, but I think once they called the date, which Trudeau, I thought, did, they're kind of stuck with it. So, but everything that stirs up U.S. animus towards the United States helps the left in Canada. And there's nothing we're negotiating with Canada more important than having a conservative party governing Canada. So my view is keep your eye on what's important. Don't hand Canada over to the left for another 5 years.
All right, so one of the things that the left kept talking about, continues talking about, Donald Trump's been in office, 40, 45 days, something like that. And the left, well, the price of eggs is still too high. The price of eggs, he's done nothing to save you. I'm sorry, this whole ordeal over eggs, a bit myopic, I would say. 40 days in office, give the man a chance to get things under control, and I think that we will move forward. What do you think about the economic message right now of the Trump administration?
Well, the importance of taking the tax cut that Trump and the Republicans passed eight years ago and making it permanent is the most important thing the president and the House and the Senate can do. It looks good. Things are going well. We should have that done. We will be able to not just extend it out for 5 years or 10 years, but for out to infinity, permanent, unless Congress votes differently 20 years from now. So getting that lower to every American had their tax rate reduced by the Trump Republican tax cut. And everyone who had a child saw a doubling of the per child tax credit. The average American family, saw $1,000 or $2,000 in immediate tax reduction. That all goes away unless we make the tax cut permanent, because it ends in a year, the tax cut that was passed. So we do need to pass it. The Republicans, I think, are pretty much all together on this. There are one or two guys who always make a fuss and then eventually come in. But right now it looks as though we'll be able to get that done. And that would be, I think, the most important thing to say to investors and businessmen and women. You can plan for the future now. When you have uncertainty, it's not that people don't trust the future. They go, I'll wait. to find out what's happening. We can't afford to wait. We need to get this done in the next couple of months. That's the president's plan. That's the Republican plan.
All right, so we're looking at different issues here: reducing regulations, reducing taxes. The reconciliation bill looks like it's on track to get there. We're also facing on March 14th a potential government shutdown. I'm so worn out by it. It's going to be a government shutdown. The end of this, end of that. Stop it. And then you've got those of the left screaming that the national parks they won't be picking up trash in the national parks this summer because Trump, cut this and Doge cut that. Look, Doge at this point quite popular with the American people, saving money on Mozambique circumcisions or something like that, and sex change operations in Guatemala or whatever the hell we're doing with our money. Doge is popular. In fact, I couldn't believe it, Grover. The CBS poll right after the speech, 76% approved of Donald Trump's speech. I never thought I would see the day when 76% of Americans agreed with Donald Trump on anything. It's pretty remarkable, really, isn't it?
It is. The president, in doing many things at once, has sort of made it difficult for the left to spend a week trashing one idea of his and making up stories about it. They have to deal with what's actually on the table. And so I think he's made tremendous progress. Right now, what Doge is doing is exposing wasteful spending and raising questions. And we're watching the establishment left, meaning the press in D.C., Washington Post, New York Times, how embarrassing is it to have an expose of waste in government of billions, and the Washington Post never asked these questions? What were they doing? What was the press? What were the journalists in Washington, D.C. doing for the last 40 years, covering for wasteful spending, not
That's
asking
right.
questions,
Well,
being journalists?
When you learn that NPR, PBS, Politico, and who knows who else were getting millions of dollars a year, they're not journalists anymore. They're paid actors, right? They're paid actors at that point, Grover. They're not journalists. Clearly, they didn't vet Joe Biden. Joe Biden was the greatest person of all time until he dropped out, and then he was a terrible human being. And then, to see people like Jake Tapper come out and write a book about the cover-up of his, who was part and parcel to it, was Jake Tapper. These people are disingenuous. I'll give you the last, dishonest. Not disingenuous, just flat out dishonest. They're liars. Last word to you, Grover.
That's why the left is so unhappy. They've been exposed as not being journalists, not being serious about what they're doing. And now the American people have decided we really do have a lot of waste in government. We need to fix this. And that all the Democrats can do is stop looking behind the door.
Yeah.
And the answer
Don't
is we're going
look
to keep
back
looking
there.
Yeah.
Don't look back there. Grover Norquist, President, Americans for Tax Reform. I think we're in the right track, but we got a lot of work to do, Grover. Thank you for being here.
Much to do. Thank you.
Much to do. Thank you. All right, we'll take a quick break here. Don't forget to support the people that support this program, like 1775 Coffee. Oh, they keep me fired up every morning. 1775coffee.com. That creamer is terrific, by the way. That protein boost, power up, I guess it's called, creamer. Love that stuff. Vanilla, it's terrific. I'll be right back.